Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Now, opposition to Quebec's $570 million in education cuts is growing. Broad coalition, unions, parents, advocacy groups intensifying their pressure on the government. There is a petition against these cuts. It's amassed 150,000 signatures in records time. I heard Joe Ortona from the English Montreal School Board talking to Aaron Rand the other day. He was apoplectic. I say apoplectic over these cuts and just how heavy-handed the government is being about these cuts. So let's talk a little bit more about what schools are bracing for. Marion Miller joins us on the line, a Montreal high school teacher, and she's a member of the FAE. That's a big teachers union. Hi, Marion. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you, Elias.
So how worried are you about the return to school come August and September? How worried are you about these cuts?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I cannot believe that we're slashing into programs in this way at a time when we all know, I feel like there's consensus that what we need is more funding in our public education system, not less. So I'm really apprehensive about this fall, and I just cannot believe the mismanagement of the Minister of Education in this.
Do you know what it's going to look like? Because, you know, when you hear, there's $570 million in cuts, and I'm just trying to think, well, what does that mean when it comes to in the classroom? Do you know? Do you have an idea?
So far, what I've heard in my school board is that there'll be a lot of slashing of budgets for field trips, educational and cultural outings. Some of the school food programs might be impacted. So I'm in a neighborhood where it's really helpful that the kids get kind of a little small breakfast snack for free every morning before class. They get a muffin and a milk, and that's really helpful for a lot of kids who wouldn't be eating anything else. That would be maybe something that we'll have to cut back on. And then across my contacts at my teachers union, I've heard in other boards, they're simply not going to fill positions that should be reposted. They didn't have a candidate in June maybe, but they could repost that position for teachers or special ed workers in August, and they simply won't try to fill vacant positions. Those are the kind of things I've heard.
That latter one, does that mean that there will be more kids per teacher? Is that because that's the only way out of that, right? If you're not filling teacher positions.
Well, it could mean bigger class ratios. There are still parameters that they have to respect legally around class ratios. But what I'm more worried about is all of those support staff type of positions. So having a language and literacy specialist, having enough social emotional workers in the school who can deal with behavior problems, having school psychologists. It's more that type of position that I'm quite worried will just remain vacant.
So listen, you must have heard, the government's reaction to all of this backlash, and they're saying, look at the numbers. Look at the last 7 years. We have increased budgets over those years, and we're cutting back. But overall, we have poured more money into the education system. When you hear that from the government, their defense of what's going on right now, what do you think?
Well, they can say that there have been reinvestments in certain places. There were salaries for a lot of education workers that were really dragging behind the Canadian average, and those have been brought up a little bit. That's a good thing. But you have to look at kind of the last 25 years, the amount of cuts that happened, not just under this government, other governments. We haven't caught up. We haven't accounted for that. And shortly after the cuts were announced, I heard an interview where Granville said it himself. This is not about cutting off excess and fat. He doesn't believe that there's actually unnecessary spending. He's just asking everyone to tighten the belts and find compressions to make. So he himself admits we're not in an excess of spending in education, but he's going to still ask us to compress.
And is there anywhere where you can tighten the belt? From your perspective, is there anywhere where that can be done responsibly?
I don't think so in the context where you're in such a staffing shortage, you're in a resource shortage, your school's infrastructure is falling apart. I don't see where there's really excess spending taking place at this time. There's so much need for reinvestment that as a teacher in schools, I only see opportunities to put more funding in. I really don't see waste happening in the schools where I've worked.
We're with Montreal high school teacher Marion Miller. We're talking about these proposed cutbacks. Marion, listen, are you on the French side? Because you're in the FAE, right? So that means you're on the French side, eh?
Yep.
I think it's like a third of Anglophones send their children to French schools, right? So I think that's still really relevant here. Is it because the French side, they've got these service centers now. They don't have the school boards, right? So I mentioned Joe Ortona from the EMSB. He can go on CJAD. He can advocate because you still have these school boards on the English side. Do you think things are different on the French side and there's less advocacy because you don't have this school board system anymore? You've got these service centers, which are much more closely tied to the government?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And so I think it's taken out a lot of voice actually for parents to be involved in critiquing and questioning what's happening at that service center level. They don't have those elected seats anymore. It's a lot harder to access kind of your service center and question what's going on there because it's directly tied to the government, as you mentioned. So I think there's actually an issue with democracy since we've transitioned to that service center model. And I think it's going to be harder for parents and communities to be involved in the choices being made around education in those service centers.
Marion, before I have to let you go, is there something we didn't touch on that you wanted to make sure you got heard today?
Well, just you were mentioning at the beginning, the parents and communities get involved in that massive petition. I think it's going to be so important that parents really take on this fight. As teachers, obviously, we're going to be fighting back when we can and through our unions, but it's going to be so important for parents to be out there on the street, to be making calls to their members of the National Assembly, and even your teenagers. Ask them this fall, your teenagers who are in high school, what do you notice? Is there a soccer coach that was not rehired this year because of cuts? Is there a difference in the lunch program? Get them involved too in looking and being a little bit the detectives of how is this impacting the whole ecosystem of their school.
Marion, I hope you're getting a chance to enjoy your summer, and I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks very much.
That's Marion Miller, a Montreal high school teacher.